On October 29th, 2022, Mercury will enter Scorpio. And it's going to be there until November 17th, 2022. Okay, did that sound scripted? Because I don't want to sound scripted. So, that's the date range. That's when this is going to be occurring. Now, let's get into this. Mercury is the planet of communication. It is our minds. It's how we think. It's how we communicate. It is what we process in order to learn and grow and become better skilled individuals. And I say this because Mercury, really deals with being very intellectually savvy, book smart. What's interesting about this is that this happens a day after Jupiter enters Pisces. So Jupiter, the planet of higher learning, higher education, and the teacher of great wisdom and great truths, is going to be moving into one of its home signs. It's going to be moving back into Pisces on October 28th. And so Pisces is opposite Virgo. So Jupiter rules Pisces and Mercury rules Virgo. Jupiter also rules Sagittarius, and we're only going to be one sign away from that, beginning on October 23rd. If you're watching this before October 23rd, then, the sun, after the sun passes through the sign of Scorpio, is going to enter Sagittarius. And so Jupiter also rules Sagittarius. Opposite that would be Mercury ruling Gemini. So Mercury is the day-to-day, things I need to get checked off my list, the little things I need to pay attention to, the little bits of information I need to take in, the details that I need to use to take action on. That's what Mercury is. And so Mercury rules Gemini. It's a very flighty, superficial sign. It's all about going over here, going over there. And it's the butterfly that just wants to collect all kinds of information. And only a little bit, and only just on the surface. It deals with small talk and really getting into a conversation with somebody. But maybe not knowing their truth or your truth, because Gemini at worst, one of its downsides is it can be a fibber and a liar, because it's a dual sign, and there's a, trickster, mischievous quality to Gemini because it's symbolized by the twins, and so you have one, playing a trick and then the other playing another trick, and so, Scorpio isn't really about that at all. So, Gemini is, Mercury, the messenger of the gods, Mount Olympus, where everything's so good and light and fun and, excitable and energetic up there. But then Scorpio is the lower realm. It is the underworld. It's where you go when you pass down the road of heaven. That's really what I like to call dying. Because Scorpio deals with the death and the process of it. Scorpio is one of those signs that really looks at, the process of you from one person becoming another person. And, I'm going to get into that later on this, in this video. But, Mercury entering Scorpio. So Scorpio is a water sign. It is a water sign that is very, very deep, very dark, very strong. Also, word for strong is very intense. And it's a fixed sign, so it really latches on and just holds on to a hook. And doesn't let that hook go until all the juice is squeezed out of it. You want to squeeze out all the orange, the orange juice of the factories, all the orange juice of the orange. And so, I was listening to the astrologer and psychotherapist Deborah Silverman. And so, because the South Node is in Scorpio and the North Node is in Taurus, you think about, she had a metaphor in one of her past horoscope videos that she did. Scorpio is all about, Taurus is like the scent of the lemon, the taste of, or the scent of the orange, just the taste of the orange, just enjoying the smell wafting through, just taking it in and not taking for granted and acknowledging it for whatever it is. It's slow, it's calm, it's all about being in the moment. Scorpio is about, let's market this, let's manufacture it, let's sell it out to the masses. And, Scorpio as a sign really does have to do with, shared resources and really what the masses, experience, because Scorpio is ruled by Pluto. And I was listening to Cosmic Arts Astro Services, which is a really great channel if you want to really dig deep into astrology. And she was talking about Pluto and how it got its character, the history, and the whole process of just how it came about, and how through history of when it was discovered, how it just developed all of its characteristics and qualities and themes as well. So she was saying, Scorpio deals with, Pluto deals with, now that people, one part of the world and then another part of the world could experience the same experience, have that same thing. And, Scorpio corresponds to the 8th house, the house of shared wealth, shared resources, inheritance, and, sharing and distribution of those resources. So I thought that would be a little, financial astrology insert there. But so, anyway, so Mercury moving into Scorpio, and Scorpio is, as I was saying, because there's so many ideas and so many ways I could go about this. Scorpio is, a fixed sign. So it's very loyal towards someone or something, very, very determined to achieve this goal, to go after it to the ends of the earth, to see it through, the strong, powerful, like, why do something halfway? It's all about going all in with full on, intensity and drive and stamina, and really, working yourself and pushing yourself and not giving up. Persistence really makes to be one of Scorpio's greatest and highest qualities. Now, the low road of the fixed signs, especially with Scorpio, is its stubbornness. But to, sort of make something to be more specific, to make, to take Scorpio as a sign and its own qualities, and, say, what those, negative traits are of Scorpio, is, first of all, with, when Mercury comes into Scorpio, you could be feeling, there could be this, just obsession with your thoughts, obsession with the desire, obsession with the feeling, goal and activity, a file that you need to dig into, so, a video, a channel, just something, really obsessive and really, difficult. There is a difficulty with letting go, even though Scorpio as a sign deals with the whole process of letting go and transforming, and shedding away the old skin and becoming somebody, new that you were not in the process. So there could be that element to it as well, with Mercury in Scorpio. And Scorpio, there's several symbols the main one is the Scorpion, and you never know, because Scorpios don't tend to have a short fuse, but when they get mad enough, when they want to let you know how much you've irked them and hurt them, they will, attack you, and that scorpion tail could come out just so suddenly you didn't expect it. It's just such a great shock to you. So, sort of, bear that in mind when you are getting very, very psychologically triggered and annoyed and your buttons get pushed. With Mercury in Scorpio, you could be really thinking very just strong thoughts about I want to get back at this person, or I want this so bad I'm willing to take others down to get it. I want to take a plunger and make sure that this thing gets this toilet gets drained, no matter what, or whatever the task might be. Really, Scorpio deals with diving deep into tasks. This is also a placement for any kind of detective work, for really diving deep, for investigation. Seeing, investigation of things, investigation of files, and really, research, really cutting to the truth. Not any, really knowing who to trust, because, that's another thing of, knowing, who to put your faith in, and your, life and livelihood responsibility in, to rely on. And so that's another aspect with this as well. But dealing with detective work, digging deep, finding the truth of something, not beating around the bush or skimming the surface, but really getting to the root core of something. And with Mercury and Scorpio, you can also really find the truth of why people are doing what they do. Psychology as well, the real, motives and the intentions behind what they're doing, and if, they're really, if they are worthy of you, because Scorpio is in South Nodes, and Scorpio, the North Node, is a Taurus, and Taurus deals with, your values and the feeling of self-worth. So, seeing someone's true colors, and, getting into someone's mind, if you will. And, yeah. So, Mercury and Scorpio. So, that's one area of it. And, another thing with this placement as well is really you never know who someone is until you get to know them. And so it kind of takes time, for you to see them at their deepest and truest level. And, another thing is really meaning what you say, saying something with, depth and true meaning, and really something that leaves a mark, leaves, an impact, something where people can take away from that. And, it has, it, and you really speaking from your truth, really making somebody view something from a different perspective, thinking and having something very thought-provoking, for that person that, you're having an encounter with this time, or any kind of relationship. And so, Really getting honest about the issue, speaking to it. This is how I feel, and, really, just acknowledging the truth, and, getting to the truth. And, sometimes the truth hurts. Sometimes, when you put salt on the wound, it can, make it better, but it hurts. It does sting. So, and, the other thing is not being afraid of your shadow. And, if you're watching this video before the lunar eclipse video that I did, solar eclipse video I did for the 25th of October, I do talk a lot about shadow work. It's not about bypassing the feelings. It's about going into the deeper psychological realm and finding out what's really, going on there, and, facing the shadow and owning up to fear, conquering fear, getting over it, getting over a challenge even. And, going into the storm to then find, I've had this metaphor a couple of times, I'll say it again, but, going into the storm, going into the storm to then find the rainbow and then the sun that shines at the end of it. Integrating the parts of you that, that you're ashamed of, not fond of, that you fear that you're, uncomfortable with, that you want to, disregard entirely, and, for them not to be a part of your being. And, in healing any, patterns or habits or toxic thoughts, or, depression, or feeling down, and really your mind fully in just the, just the negative emotions and the dark side of life. Because, Scorpio deals with that, and you could be more attuned to feelings of loss and, backstab, and, and manipulation with other people, and feeling, drained psychologically, and if anyone's taking power over you, or if you have to work at something, but then you just have, no motivation, and there's not, hope and happiness and feelings of peace and gratitude and all of that. Those types of things, maybe you want to pay attention to that at this time, and, really, journaling, writing out your feelings, getting physical exercise is another one, listening to music and just having time to escape and zone out, shutting your eyes, dealing with eyes as well as anyway. And just going in and going quiet, and allowing that time for yourself, and really thinking about self-care is real as well. Really taking care of yourself, and engaging in a lot of dark stuff, especially because it gets toward Halloween. So you're thinking about scary movies, and solving mysteries as well, finding the truth of something, and detective shows, all those darker stuff, psychic mediumship, all that is great to get into at this time. So that is Mercury in Scorpio 2022. I hope that you liked that, enjoyed that. Please like this video, share this, subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. I would really appreciate it if you do. Subscribe and hit the bell so that you don't miss any future videos from me. Bye for now, and I'll see you in another video.